Artificial intelligence could cause a job apocalypse in the United Kingdom and possibly around the globe. Now, that's what a shocking new report says. According to the report by the Institute for Public Policy Research, a UK-based think tank, AI could eliminate up to nearly 8 million jobs in the UK, and women and early career employees are at the highest risk of being put out of work. However, the report adds a caveat saying government policy could allow the UK to avert job losses and harness AI for a breakneck economic surge. The report states the world of knowledge work will be transformed by generative AI. That's a reference to a type of AI that can create content such as text or images. We need to start preparing for this now, the report says. Researchers analyzed 22,000 tasks carried out by workers across the UK economy, finding that 11% are currently exposed to the threat of displacement by AI. The jobs at greatest risk include entry-level, part-time and administrative roles, a set of positions disproportionately held by women, according to this study. The report describes a soon-to-begin phase of AI adoption during which some of these low-hanging fruit jobs will be replaced by the technology. The overall workforce impact over the period could be limited, but some roles will experience massive impact, such as the elimination of 1/3 of administrative jobs. A second phase could bring much deeper integration of AI that could threaten up to 60% of all jobs. If companies allow AI to access proprietary information and execute key tasks, the resulting disruption may slash a wider swath of jobs, including a larger share of high-paying positions, says this report. But it's not all gloom and doom. Experts say there was a surge of AI adoption over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic without significant job losses. They argue that while data on the scale of displacement remains limited, anecdotes confirm that the technology eliminates some positions while creating others. Also, Carsten Jung, senior economist at the think tank IPPR, which has released the study, says already existing generative AI could lead to big labor market disruption, or it could usually boost economic growth. Either way, it is said to be a game changer for millions of us. A job apocalypse is not inevitable. Government, employers and unions have the opportunity to make crucial design decisions now that ensure we manage this new technology well. But if they don't act soon enough, it may be too late, he says. Analyzing the potential effects of a second wave of AI adoption on the labour market, the IPPR found that the technology has the potential to contribute up to £306 billion annually to the UK economy in the best case scenario, with no job losses. However, these outcomes depend heavily on government policy. Additionally, AI implementation could lead to wage increases of up to 30%. It is hard to deny, though, that the increased sophistication and use of artificial intelligence is expected to displace jobs over the coming years. AI will enhance productivity and increase compensation for some jobs, but it risks leaving out workers who fail to keep up. And the news gets worse. Consider these statistics. Artificial intelligence could displace roughly 15% of workers, or 400 million people worldwide, between 2016 and 2030, according to a McKinsey study released in 2018. In a scenario of wide AI adoption, the share of jobs displaced could rise to as much as 30%, the firm found. Now, the report by the Institute for Public Policy Research that was released this week also presents policy proposals which the authors believe could reduce the likelihood of job losses and heighten the possibility of an AI-induced economic boom, as we mentioned. A policy described by the report as ring fencing, for instance, would mandate the continued use of human involvement for certain tasks, such as medical diagnoses. A combination of government incentives and public-private partnerships could help achieve this measure. In its most optimistic potential scenario, the report outlines a future of AI adoption in which no jobs are lost and gross domestic product increases by 13%. The authors say there is no one predetermined path for how AI implementation will play out. Businesses in various sectors are leveraging AI to enhance efficiency. Now, the UK Chancellor for the Exchequer has unveiled an £800 million or $1 billion investment in technology and AI to bolster public sector productivity. In a report released last November, the UK government recognized the impact of AI on employment, particularly in the finance and insurance industries. It urged schools and employers to provide workers with the necessary skills to navigate these changes. A separate research by LinkedIn reveals that the UK trails behind countries like India, the US, Germany, Canada, and Israel in terms of AI skills. The question we're asking on Global Lens tonight is this: how big a threat does artificial intelligence pose to jobs globally in the years ahead? Do we need to worry, especially given the fact that the current job climate the world over is already looking rather bleak, with winds of an economic slowdown and rising inflation making matters worse? All right, let's go across to our panel of experts who will dissect and decode this report for us. Joining me on the show tonight, Kanish Gaur, AI and digital technology expert. We're going to be joined in a moment by Tejpreet Chopra, co-chairman of the CII AI Forum. We also have with us Dilip Chenoy, chairman at Bharat Web3 Association. And we're also going to be joined in a moment by Rakesh Maheshwari, former head of cyber law and e-security. All right, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining me on Global Lens tonight. Dilip Chenoy, let me start with you. At the very onset, of course, we need to make it clear that none of us have a crystal ball and there is no definitive way to know the exact extent of impact that artificial intelligence is likely to have on jobs in the years ahead. But I think one thing that we can all agree on safely is that there will be an adverse impact and there will be job losses thanks to AI. It is something that's already beginning to happen. Just how much pace is this going to gather in the coming years now remains the big question. But if you look at this particular report that I just quoted by this UK-based think tank, the Institute for Public Policy Research, even though it talks about the UK, saying AI could cause a job apocalypse and eliminate up to nearly 8 million jobs. If you extrapolate it to the global scenario, it does paint a very worrying and grim picture. What is your take?
So Neha, I mean, if you look at the advent of technology, right, it's not necessary now, even you go back to the 1960s, or even you take India's case when we had computers coming in and the banking sector and the banking union said it will disrupt the whole system and you lose jobs. But, contrary to this report, there's actually a World Economic Forum report which came out after the IMF report that was also talking about loss of jobs. And the long-term trends across the world is that the number of jobs over the years goes on increasing. The nature of jobs changes. So the challenge here is, definitely artificial intelligence, applied in various industries, applied for various jobs, will change the nature of jobs. And therefore, those people who are not upskilled or reskilled or learn the application of AI in these jobs actually will lose jobs. The second thing would be that, yes, you also mentioned that there are certain types of jobs. The report also talks about adverse impact on women and other sectors. But those people, if they are going to get displaced from a job, can we retrain them and can we put them into other jobs? So, the report also talks about if policy intervention could be done, you could use AI constructively and you can actually make other things happen and you have economic growth and new jobs being created. So I think the challenge here is, how do you take a new technology? How do you utilize it and adopt it in existing circumstances so that it aids productivity, it aids the delivery of services to different people, but has minimal impact on job loss. And even those people who have a job loss go into other segments. 60% of jobs will change in the next few years. So if you don't retrain those people, then they will not be employable. So there are different aspects to this. Yes, some jobs will go away. Receptionist. If you look at voice recording, earlier when you had a credit card in India, someone manually used to respond. Now it's all, automatic voice recording things and all that. But those people have been employed in other parts of the industry to actually to maintain jobs and to do other things. So you see a shift in jobs. You will see some jobs going away. In some economies, if you look at the developed economies, you might have a adverse impact because they have a challenge of aging and they have other challenges, demographic challenges. So they're looking at a different scenario there. So it's not one size fits all. It's not all gloom and doom. There are many positives, and I don't see, the numbers that they're talking about happening in the medium to short run. And you yourself quoted the McKinsey study. There's also a PwC study. There are other studies. There's the IMF report. But I think they all have varying numbers. But the one thing that they say, while jobs will be lost, jobs will be created. And I think as society, we have to ensure that the jobs that are created far exceed the jobs that are lost.
Well, that certainly is the hope. But, there continue to be fears about the impact that AI is likely to have. Maybe it is the fear of the unknown, but there's also evidence available to suggest that certain degree of job losses have begun to happen. But of course, you're right, Dilip Chinoy, in pointing out that the key lies in reskilling the workforce. But can we keep up? Will governments be able to do enough? Will the private sector pull its weight in this regard? Let me bring in Tejpreet Chopra at this point. Tejpreet Chopra, I do not want to paint a doomsday scenario, but then I am quoting these different studies that have come out in recent times. We just talked about this UK think tank report that says AI could cause a job apocalypse and eliminate as many as 8 million jobs in the UK alone in the coming years. Then there was another report, and Mr. Chinoy just referred to it, a McKinsey study that was released in November of last year, which says artificial intelligence could displace roughly 15% of workers. That's 400 million people worldwide between 2016 and 2030. And in a scenario of wide AI adoption, the share of jobs displaced could rise to as much as 30%. Now, that does sound like a doomsday scenario, especially if you if you consider the fact that the economic climate globally is not very bright at the moment. There are already winds of an economic slowdown blowing. Job losses seem to be the order of the day. There are already a lot of worries with regard to growing unemployment. And then you look at these studies and you would think we're all doomed. What's your take?
No, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me onto the show. So really appreciate it. I think it's good to see both sides of the perspective. I think you're absolutely right. If we go back in history, over time, as things have changed, as industrialization happened, there were the same concerns that happened over long periods of time, that people are going to lose jobs, there's going to be unemployment. But humans have the ability to adapt. So over the years, people have adapted as things have progressed. And I think that's what's going to happen this time already. You are absolutely right. We will see some job losses. For example, we will see it in customer service centers. We'll see it in healthcare. We will see these job losses happening at the bottom of the pyramid. And over time, as AI gets smarter, as it gets more generative, it'll move up its value chain. At one point in time, a few years ago, people said AI cannot impact the creative sector, but we are seeing the impact of AI in the creative sector. We at Industry.ai are seeing it every day on the factory floor. But let me just give you the positive side of it. People are getting more productive on the factory floor. So we are seeing the benefits of AI on the factory floor, where people are being able to produce more. We are creating safer environments. We're able to produce better quality products. We're able to make more energy efficiency on factory floors. So while there will be job losses, however, at the same time, we're going to see a lot of gains as well. But coming back to your point on job losses, I think over time there will be a redistribution in jobs over time. Now, the key question is, what is the time span where we're going to see this job distribution? And as Dilip, my friend, just pointed out, different parts of the world will see different phases of these job losses. And I think that's what's going to happen. But I completely agree. There will be a change. There will be redistribution. The question is going to be over what period of time.
How long will it take, and the extent to which this impact is likely to be felt by the workforce globally. Let me go across to Kanishk Gaur at this point. Kanishk, you know, the study says, and our panelists seem to agree, that the maximum impact of generative AI is likely to be on what have been described as low-hanging fruit jobs. These are likely to be replaced by this technology before anything else. You know, there will be a massive hit to, let's say, administrative jobs. According to this study, as many as 1/3 of those jobs that exist today could vanish in the coming years. A lot of entry-level employees are likely to take a hit. Unfortunately, women are likely to be disproportionately impacted because the nature of these jobs is such that they happen to have a lot of women in them. But the question really is that, you know, we don't want to talk about, you know, a doomsday scenario, like I said, but then this is an inevitable reality that we need to brace ourselves for. The question is, how do we brace ourselves for what seems to be inevitable, Kanishk? Yes, we are talking about the need for reskilling, but the question is, can we really do it on a scale that is actually required? Could you unmute yourself, Kanishk?
Thank you for bringing me in, Neha, on this important topic. And I heard my fellow panelists. What I would like to point out is that historically we have seen transitions happening. We saw transitions happening when internet came in and when nuclear energy came in. And both of these led to revolutions which disrupted jobs. But eventually more jobs got created. Hence, the emphasis today should be on adapting the workforce to create larger economy which is aligned on using artificial intelligence rather than fear mongering. You know, it's important for us to understand the potential of AI, how it could augment jobs rather than replace them. The most important element is the government policy on how it is going to bring out reforms, particularly in skilling and education, and prepare the larger workforce for future demands. Historically, we have seen economies have been resilient when it comes to technology shifts, but we need to have a larger optimistic outlook for the impact of AI. Particularly, I like to point out when .com came out, there were a lot of issues. How will people adapt when everything is going to be available on the internet? But those ecosystems have adapted and are today using internet to empower small scale businesses, and that has evolved. So that's why companies like Amazon, Google are today powering larger economic outlook and are also working with small and medium scale businesses. So I see AI as more of an enabler to enhance jobs rather than replacing human jobs. What is required is improving efficiency and creating new skills which could supplement people. There will be certain sectors where jobs are going to be lost, typically the call centers, where you would see that the bots are going to replace humans. So there will be a large part of the workforce which will be replaced by bots. And we have already seen conversational AI taking away thousands of jobs. But what could happen is that a lot of these people would be required for customer service in using AI. So how do you enable a larger workforce to be AI trained and AI driven is something which is the need of the hour. Also, what is required is inclusive growth, where the focus is more on inclusive policies, which focuses on larger sections of the societies and AI enablement across those, whether it is healthcare, whether it is finance, whether it is telecom. Hence, create more opportunities to unlock new avenues for innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic development.
All right, interesting. You know, some of my friends have also told me that, maybe that time is not too far when there will be an AI avatar of news anchors like myself, where maybe our services will not be required anymore. Well, I perish the thought. I certainly want to believe that day is never coming. But then, jokes apart, Dilip Chinoy, the report also expresses optimism at some level and says that, if the right government policies are adopted at the right time, then not only could the job losses that are being feared significantly be reduced, but there could also be an AI-induced economic boom. And you need a policy such as ring fencing, which would mandate the continued use of human involvement for certain tasks, such as medical diagnosis, and a combination of government incentives and public-private partnerships could help achieve this goal. So I'm going to ask you this. Can we leave it entirely to the government? Or is the private sector required to play an equally important role, if not a bigger one?
Yeah, I think first, I was looking for that number in your last segment. So I'll just say the same World Economic Forum report that I quoted, right, said by 2025, we may lose 85 million jobs, but the AI can also create 97 million new roles. So there are two sides of it. And I think the people who are talking about job creation are looking at the ways that, you've asked your question. What could society and what could government and industry do together to ensure that we use AI responsibly and we actually use AI to increase productivity, grow the economy, reduce costs, and of course do a lot of other things. If you look at the economy and you look at what people are wanting, right? There's going to be a food shortage. There's going to be shortages of other things. We have the climate change challenge coming in front of us. So if we productively and innovatively use AI to solve for these challenges, then you need more people to work in those segments to cater for the larger kind of demand that these new requirements of society will need. And therefore, private sector will have to take a lead role in using AI to see not only how they can become more competitive and more productive, but also how they can enlarge the pie, right? Second, I think there has to be, and there is a very interesting report done by the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council and by one of the members, Sanjeev Sanyal, who said that there are three factors that need to be taken in, to make AI actually useful for society. And one, he talked about a circuit breaker that, if it goes in, then we need human intervention, which is something which you have also talked about and the UK report has also talked about. So I think globally, we need a collective kind of environment and a regulatory framework that we can use the benefits of AI and not let it be used in manners that it actually impacts the global economy in a different manner. Private sector, one simple role, government and industry getting together, identifying people who are being displaced from jobs, getting upskilling and reskilling programs to train them, and so that they can be ready for other jobs, and the government looking at what are the positive uses of AI in government programs that will actually increase their effectiveness and also lead to a greater benefit for society and also more jobs. So, each entity has a role, the government, the public-private sector, and the private sector. And I think this sector, and if you see all the major global conferences that have been held in the AI space over the last few months, in fact, the first one was done just when the pandemic was ending, and it was said AI, responsible use of AI. And last month or early in the month before that, we had a global conference on AI in New Delhi itself. So I think the world is conscious about this. And I think we have to work together to find those solutions. And the report itself, the large number of job losses is the worst case scenario. So normally consulting organizations have a worst case scenario, which you yourself said, in a bit of a humor, that you might not be here and your avatar may be presenting. That's possibly the worst case scenario. And the interesting thing is that this show may be using AI to have multiple formats, and you'll meet multiple anchors doing each segment of the show. So two different things, and what happens in the future will be something in between.
Well, what happens in the future will be something in between. So I may have to share some airtime with an AI avatar of mine. Maybe I can live with that, but I certainly don't want to give up my job and have, a bot take it over. I think.
Oh, yeah, you might be in the metaverse. You might be in the metaverse with many more viewers, interactive, different formats. And that's what Web3 is all about, but that's for another time.
Okay, that's interesting. There is always a brighter side to everything. So, Mr. Chinoy says, look at the possibility of being present at multiple places at one point. We're entering the era of, a multiverse. You're quite right there. But let me take this back to Kanishk Gaur. Kanishk, the UK Chancellor for the Exchequer recently unveiled an £800 million or $1 billion investment in technology and AI to bolster public sector productivity. And in a report released just last November, the UK government recognized the impact that AI is likely to have on employment, especially in sectors such as finance and insurance. The question is, as I asked Mr. Chinoy earlier, as we talk about the need for upskilling and reskilling, so that even as some old jobs are phased out, some newer ones are created and the workforce is equipped to handle those, how much of a role do you believe the governments around the world will need to play, and how big a role will industry be expected to play? And also, experts are saying that we have to start now. We can't wait until 2030. We have to start now.
Neha, what is needed is a larger public-private partnerships. Neither government working alone can solve this issue, or can private industry. What is required is policy level intervention, both at a global and at a strategic level today. So what we require is a global AI collaboration when it comes to joining up the West with developing countries like India, because the development of AI is going to be supported through countries like India. The emerging technology is going to come from the US. The regulations are going to come from EU or the UK, right? So we have to look at a model where we have typically build out transitions where we have a larger global AI regulation, which could equally benefit different stakeholders. Typically how we have seen the governance of internet or nuclear energy being led so far, like we have the International Atomic Agency for looking at nuclear. Similarly, for AI, you would require a larger body, which would require to look at how AI can be put to good use and also create more skills. Hence,
Right.
it's important that the UK government also builds up a public-private partnership with the industry and industry giants such as Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, Amazon, who are really the innovators. So the
Okay.
innovators have to work to create new skills, but the regulatory aspect has to be to
Okay.
enable more cooperation and transparency rather than limiting their work.
Okay, so the key clearly lies in a partnership between the government and industry. I need to go across to Rakesh Maheshwari now, who joins us on the show at this point. Mr. Maheshwari, we're talking about certain new reports that have come out that have set alarm bells ringing. A think tank in the UK suggests that AI could cause a job apocalypse. As many as 8 million jobs in the UK alone could be wiped out. A McKinsey report late last year suggested that as many as 400 million jobs could disappear from the world between 2016 and 2030. We're talking about the challenges as well as the opportunities that AI offers us and how we need to prepare ourselves for an inevitable future with involvement from both the government and industry. But I want your thoughts on this. There's a separate research that's been done by LinkedIn which reveals that the United Kingdom actually trails behind countries like India, the US, Germany, Canada and Israel in terms of AI skills. So the question on a lot of people's minds would be, how is India doing on this front?
So first of all, let's understand that any such report which probably may not, or which is probably one dimensional. So if you just look at the overall size of the economy and see that the productivity goes up and hence the number of jobs come down, yes, if you are looking it only from one dimension, it is going to happen. But any new technology, and particularly disruptive technologies like AI, are definitely going to increase the productivity, and therefore the economy should also grow up sizably. And that's how, at one end, there is a likelihood of job loss, but at the other end, there is a likelihood of the increase in productivity and increase in size of the economy, and which actually balances it out. And this is what precisely has happened in the past also, where the new technology, initially there is an apprehension of job loss, but finally they create a lot of new opportunities, higher productivity, and hence contribute to the economy of the country. But the fact completely remains that at this point, India and other countries like also in the world need to retrain their manpower, need to look at AI as an opportunity to see that there are appropriate policy intervention so as to allow growth and to see that the negative impact of such technologies are reduced to the extent possible.
Let me go back to Tejpreet Chopra at this point. Mr. Chopra, they say you cannot halt the inexorable march of technology. You have to evolve and adapt. The question is, how well poised is India, in your assessment, to adapt to this change? We often talk about India's demographic dividend. Not only are we the most populous nation in the world today, but a majority of our population, almost 65%, is under the age of 35. But often there is a fear expressed that we do not want this demographic dividend to turn into a demographic disaster on account of lack of job opportunities, which already seems to be a major challenge. And AI is going to make it more challenging for us. Where do we stand?
Neha, I think we have an incredible opportunity to really make a difference going forward. We have a community and a population that's very tech savvy. We are producing a lot of engineers and very savvy engineers. So I think we have a very unique opportunity to take advantage of. Number two, we could potentially become a large manufacturing hub of the world. And our ability to use AI technologies to drive productivity, yield, quality in our manufacturing processes can give us a huge advantage. Three, we have the manpower to not only do this for ourselves in India, but export this technology to the world. So I think we have a very unique opportunity to take advantage of what's happening, but it's going to take a huge amount of effort. It's going to take a lot of capital to train a lot of people. It's going to require a lot of investments in creating the ecosystem in India. So while there are a lot of challenges, I think it's a unique opportunity for us to take advantage of in India.
Okay, I'm out of time, but I'll give the last word to Dilip Chinoy. Mr. Chinoy, do you agree with Mr. Chopra? Yes, AI presents a huge opportunity to a country like India, but there are also, concerns, valid concerns. Where do we stand? How equipped are we to deal with this oncoming challenge?
So I fully agree with TP. I think he's articulated it very well. And he's in the industry, so there could be no one better than him. I think India is very ideally placed for three particular reasons. Like he just mentioned, in the whole IT space, all right, Indians are the largest workforce the world over. So, we have the whole world opening up to the engineers and the IT specialists and the artificial intelligence specialists in India in terms of employment. The second is that we are very fast adapters as a country. If you look at the financial inclusion, the UPI, and our digital public infrastructure, etc. I think we are very fast adapters of new technology, and if we can actually initiate this adaptation in the various aspects of the economy, it'll actually be a positive. And third, just before the election code kicked in, actually the government announced a very big program which includes public-private partnership and other aspects in the space of AI. So these three things are very, very positive for us as a country. And of course, you yourself mentioned the young population that we have, and they are very tech savvy. So, they will find a space in this. And, given that the other populations are aging and the developed economies have different challenges, India is very well poised to actually ride on the boom of AI and actually create jobs in the country and also help the world address this problem.
That does sound very reassuring. India is well poised to believe to ride this boom, and let's certainly hope we can leverage our demographic dividend. Well, it's been a fascinating discussion. I really wish we had more time, but thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me. A big thank you to Tejpreet Chopra, Dilip Chinoy, Rakesh Maheshwari, and Kanish Gaur for joining me on Global Lens tonight.